time's an illusion. Time is malleable. You're playing with the time in that way. And so in order to start doing that, you've got to start looking at your relationship with time.
Trust flow, surrender, let go. Yeah. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Yeah. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Highest Self podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spirituality and make it modern, fun, grounded, and relatable so it can actually serve your needs. So if you've been a longtime listener of this podcast, been 8 years running, you may notice I'm somewhere a little bit different right now. Everything's beige, and I have really glam makeup on. What is going on right now? We're not in LA anymore. We're in Dubai, Habibi. So I more recently moved to Dubai. I actually moved there in November of 2024, but did a lot of podcasts with my Capricorn ahead of time. So now that you're watching this, it will have been a while that I'm here in Dubai. And this is my very first episode recorded here in this gorgeous, swanky, very Sahara Rose-esque studio. And I wanted to bring on some of Dubai's finest people that walk through this city that really are expanders. So why did I move to Dubai? It's such, for me, a city of expansion, a city of limitless possibility. You know, it's a literal desert from which arose a city, a life blossomed. And, you know, what's so crazy is when I was 23 years old, I did a breathwork journey that I saw a rose blossoming in the desert. That's how I really took on the name Sahara Rose. And it's crazy, over 10 years now living here, which is also just right across, like miles away from the waters here. The Persian Gulf is where my mother's family is from, the south of Iran. So it really feels like a homecoming. And it's really interesting. They say like the new American dream is in Dubai, and I kind of feel it. Like almost like my parents left the Middle East for opportunity. I'm like coming back to the Middle East. So it's so cool being here. And I'm honestly like even facing my own upper limits of being in that queen energy, you know, that royal frequency, allowing ourselves to receive. Because, you know, last year I spent a lot of time in Peru and Guatemala and on the medicine path. And it's really about humbling yourself, which is so important in the spiritual journey. And I feel like now I'm brought to like the total other frequency, and it's like stretching my capacity to receive, stretch. And I never consider myself to be someone that had like worthiness issues. I wouldn't say. And I'm just like, oh, there are just higher levels of life in every way that, you know, it's so beautiful to be around people that you're all like kind of in the same frequency. I feel like that was my vibe in LA. And now I'm just like, oh, wow, there are, and I'm not just talking about wealth, but relationships, travel, impact, like all of these things that it's really showing me how much bigger can I think? Because I think sometimes we like, you know, we make it, we're living our dharmas and we're like, okay, I'm doing it and it's great. And it's like, can you go bigger? Can you create more? Can you hold more? And I'm so excited because I have very few people that are like real expanders for me. And this queen really is today who you're going to hear, Regan Hillyer. Many of you likely know her work. I had her app like a while ago. We'll talk about that. And she's a dear friend, so many mutual friends on the path. And her work is all about manifestation and really showing us that we can quantum leap into these new realities. We can collapse time. We can literally sculpt our reality to have new visions for ourselves that we never believed possible, whether it is abundance, whether it is relationships, whether it is home, friendships, the list goes on. And she has an incredible method. It's, you know, the top performing program in Mind Valley, where we both were at the conference this weekend. And I'm so excited to have her sharing her wisdom with us today. And before we get into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe. That allows you to stay in the loop for future conversations. This podcast is also on YouTube, so you could be watching us in person, Spotify video, and the Apple Store. So be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with future conversations, and let's get into this one. So let's welcome Regan here on the Highest Self podcast. Welcome, Queen.
Thank you so much, Sahara. It's a long time coming, and I'm so happy to be here. Yeah.
And last night we were both wearing sparkly dresses at the Mind Valley Gala. So of course, like we had to do, like our souls were like, we need to do this in the most glam way possible.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen in Dubai.
It's amazing.
Okay. Sculpting reality. actually the first time I heard someone say that was you. And I loved it because it's like, we think of a sculpture of like, you know, I'm sculpting, I'm making a little bit more this, that, but we never really think of it as reality. Sometimes we think our reality is almost like we're complacent and it just happens. So how do we sculpt our reality?
We sculpt our reality firstly by knowing that we can, exactly as you said. So many people think that their reality is something that's still and fixed. But if we understand the structure of our reality, we start realizing that even things that appear very solid and very still are actually moving in the quantum field, right? Everything's moving and oscillating and vibrating, and there's movement and there's space and there's infinite potentiality, right? And so you can literally use manifestation processes to go in and alter the quantum field within you in order to then create the external reflection of anything that you're looking to call into your life, anything.
So you have an incredible step-by-step process. So can you start to guide us through what that looks like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the first thing is that you want to get really, really, really clear on your vision, but the vision of your soul, not the vision of what you have been told you can or can't do from the constructs of your ego, but like really like, what is the vision of your soul? And be really raw and big and unapologetic with this. And then step 2 is you've got to expand your capacity to receive. Right? Because you can't just be like, oh, this is what I want, but not have the capacity to hold it. So you've got to be working into your upper limits. You've got to be really going into the vision beyond the vision, the prayer beyond the prayer, and expand your capacity so that that big vision in step number 1 becomes a stepping stone. It's got to energetically feel like, well, that's got to happen because I'm going here. Right? And then the third piece is you want to look at what's blocking you, what's stopping you, what's slowing you down and holding you back. And then from there you go in and look at, okay, what is that? Like the humanness, right? The fears and the self-doubt and the worry and all of these layers. And instead of trying to like push them to the side and they're not there, we must feel them, we must see them, we must understand why are they actually there so we can alchemize them and transform the energy into powerful energy to move us forward. And then the fourth step is that we don't get in life what we do, but we do get who we choose to be. So we've got to start connecting and embodying our highest essence, the version of ourselves that has already created the life that we desire and manifested what we want. And we can import that information again from our future through the quantum field and bring that information into the now so we can walk and talk and think and act and be from that place. And when we update our beingness, we put that energetic vibration out into the world and we start to match to what we want. Right? And it starts showing up in front of us. But the last step is important. Step number 5, you've got to actually do something, right? You've got to participate in this process. You've got to take action, massive aligned action. But where are you taking this from? Is it from an energy of, oh my God, how do I make this happen? And is it fear-based and wondering if it will happen or not? Or are you like, you know what? I know this is done. But how can I now show up to bend the time? How can I connect with the manifestation and just have it come into my life faster? And it's from that vibe that you then act and you do the things in your life.
Okay. I want to break it down with like a real-time example. So for me, I am manifesting, if I were to put it in words, tantric sacred union.
Yeah.
You know, like sacred union where fully met masculine and feminine within ourselves and within one another. Tantric being that it's truly devotional to God and goddess, worshiping God through one another, that we're both really deeply anchored in our own spiritual practices and journeys and can go further with one another, that it's intimacy, vulnerability, but also like laughter and play and travel. And some of my conditioning about relationships in the past is that, well, now I can't travel as much, or I can't live where I want to live, or I can't, it's a limitation. And so I've been doing a lot and even seeing you with your partner of like the way that you guys support one another in your dharmic vision. So how would you break that down with your steps? What kind of intuition do you have? I ask this because I've realized through having this podcast that everyone's intuition speaks to them differently. Some of us just know things. Like, you know, you're talking to someone, you just know something about them. It makes no sense. And you just say it. They're like, how'd you know that? You're like, I don't know. That's the claircognizant. Some of us, we're visual people. We see dreams. We have an image in our mind. We do visualizations. It really comes to us maybe in an art form. That's the clairvoyant. Some of us are feelers. We're talking to someone and we feel this like ache or pit in our stomach, or maybe a clenching in our shoulders, and we can just feel something is off in our bodies. That's the clairsentient. And some of us hear things. We hear a voice in our head saying, go do something or say something or make something known. That is a clairaudient. So if you're wondering what your type of intuition is, I have created a free quiz where you can figure it out and learn how you can create a career really honoring this unique type of intuition. Because the truth is, your intuition is a gift. It's not here to make you crazy, but rather it is something that you are here to share and experience with other people. And it's your superpower. So head over to the link in my show notes to discover what your type of intuition is and how to make it part of your career.
Well, you just did step one pretty well, right? You started getting clear on that vision. Yeah.
100 things long.
It's pretty good, but it's good because you're describing to me the container of the relationship. And some people don't. Some people go straight to, well, he or she needs to be this tall and exactly like this and live in this country.
I've dropped that.
You got to drop that selection criteria because that's controlling the process, right? And so if you can instead say, you know what, the container of the relationship, this is what I'm calling it. And this is what I'm manifesting. The right person is then going to match to that. So you get clear on that. And it sounds like you're very clear on your vision and what you desire. So the next step is we've got to expand that capacity to receive. So we don't hit these upper limits, right? So my question for you would be for step number 2, if you had that, if you woke up tomorrow and you're like, good morning, baby, right? And they're right there, then what would your vision be? What are you calling in? What are you praying for now? What's that?
After that.
Yeah.
What
is that?
Oh, that's such a good one because I'm like,
it's meant to break your system.
Yeah, my prayer has past 2 years focused on that I'm just like, honestly, it's like continuing to do what I'm doing right now with that support, because right now it's like me on my own, like just like, and I think that's an important part of the journey to be able to like fully hold yourself through your sovereignty, through your aloneness. But I feel I could go so much further. Like even today, I'm like, oh, like I was visualizing like how amazing it would be to be in the car with him or to have him at the Mind Valley event with me and to just have that divine masculine counterpart that can really like fill not voids because I'm able to do it all my own, but like the things that are not my zones of genius, to just have more of that groundedness because I can be so like creative and moving and like all that Shakti energy to have that like stability that I feel would allow my kite to be able to further blossom, which would lead to more speaking opportunities, more. And I just feel like a woman who's loved well walks differently. Totally. And I'm like, just like I don't feel I've ever been in a partnership where I truly felt celebrated in my bigness. And that's something I really noticed of like in previous, my previous relationship, it was like me on stage being my sparkliest self was not fully seen, let alone like celebrated. And I feel like having that support of someone that's like, oh my God, I love seeing you on stage. And I'm the luckiest man on earth to be able to like go home with that. I'm like, like the way that that would energetically nourish me from within. I can't even imagine who I become, the things I'm already doing, but the way that my vibration would shift from like, because I feel it's so natural and such a birthright for us to have. Yeah, it totally is, right? So you see how now you're already in this expansion piece. You're already like, you're living with him, you're in the car with him, you're getting off stage, you're in his arms, right? You're like, this is good, right? So we need to be pushing beyond that. And you're right, a little note on the celebration piece, because I've seen this through my different relationships and the evolution of relationships. And, I've seen as a powerful woman, as someone that's kind of like big and bold and out there in the world, right? That can trigger some people, right? And so there's some men that automatically feel not enough and automatically feel like, oh God, like I can't deal with this basically. And then there's another layer where there's some men that are just like, oh, I accept that. I'm in acceptance with who you are, but nothing more. And then there's another layer of men who are like, you know what? I celebrate that. And that's really cool. And, I had that celebration for many, many, many years. And my partner recently, we're in this place where it blew me away because it's beyond the celebration. It's this way that he can come and actually pull my potential out of me. When we first met and when we connected and when he eventually found out like my last name and like saw my social media and pieces like that, his reaction was like, oh, that's cute. That's really good. That's cute. Like you're just getting started. Oh, I love that.
And he looked at me and he's like, I look at you and all I see is potential. And he's like, I'm so excited that I get to play a role in pulling this potential out of you in every single area of your life. And I had never experienced that, from the masculine because I had gone through all these other layers and these other levels, and I hit the celebration piece and I was like, oh, this is great. But I didn't realize there was this next piece, this next code of like, yeah, that's great. But hey, like I'm actually here to activate you more. I'm the activator usually. And I've been the one for a very long time activating every single person around me. So that felt like, whoa, to start receiving that.
That reminds me of, I don't know if you ever read David Data, but he talks about like the levels of consciousness
Right.
in relationship. Level 1 just being the unconscious. I'm man, you're woman, gender roles, which most of society is in. Level 2 being personal growth. Let's use nonviolent communication.
Right.
Like, let's, we're equal and, kind of like woke culture and all of that. And level 3, which is what you're in, where it's like, like the masculine really drawing in on what it's here to do, which is to be the container for which the Shakti to dance. And I love how your partner is like, oh, I've got a huge container and you're just getting started, because that allows so much spaciousness. I feel for the feminine, we almost like, we have these huge butterfly wings, but we contract them. Like we keep, because we're like, is this too much for you? Well, if I go a little bit more, is that too much for you? Like, will you still love me if I'm this level of liberated? And we're kind of like feeling out, like the kid walking away from the parent of like, am I still safe? Am I still safe? So if someone's like, oh, this entire beyond playground, this entire globe, like, and I'm going to still hold you through all of that. And I feel like, and it's so rare to have, but someone to call you forward on your shit. But like from a genuine place where you're like, I trust your vision. I trust what you see. And it's not coming from this ego, like I want to control you or I know what's best. But it's like coming from, I mean, that's what like shadow work is, and not just the relationship to be an unconscious trigger of our shadows, but for us to really be able to like genuinely want what's best for the other person, whatever that might mean for the relationship, and call that forward is like the ultimate personal growth.
Exactly right. So, I was in this situation where I was experiencing my partner literally pulling this potential out of me. And I sat there and I thanked him. I had tears in my eyes and I explained that I'd been in celebration, but no one had really come with this level of energy, right? And he looked at me and he looked really like confused. He looked really confused. And I was like, why do you look so confused? And he's like, well, I couldn't not be like this. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, it's my primary function. And I said, tell me more. What do you mean about that? He said, well, my primary function as the masculine is to protect, provide, and preserve. And I said, okay. He said, yeah, to protect you in all that you are, to provide everything that you desire and require, and to preserve your essence. And he said, so how could I not come and pull your potential out? That's just a part of my role. And then he said to me, I don't have a choice, which triggered me because I said, you do have a choice. I teach that everyone has a choice all the time and you have to choose your beingness and choose this. And he said, no. He said, when I actually surrender to my divine masculine and the essence of who I am, that's my primary function. I don't have a choice. If I actually am at this like highest embodiment of my masculine. He's like, you don't get it yet, but I don't have a choice. And this was like a whole new wave of energy for me. It was a whole new vibration, a whole new frequency. And I think I'm starting to get it.
And it's so beautiful to hear that because then we know that it's possible, right?
Yeah.
It's in the field. And I feel it's like the feminine desire of like the man who's like, wants to ravish you and has no choice of just like, it's like the love is oozing out of me and it's just from the purest place rather than from, well, I read this book and it said I should be more masculine, so now I'm doing this. But I'm
staring at your eyes, so I'm present with you right now.
Exactly. I left one to make sure we're doing the Sufi gazing and, and I feel, I mean, we can get into a whole conversation about this, but here, let's stick with your steps.
Yeah, we lost the steps.
Okay, step 2. We're going to many levels right now. Step 2, all right.
Step 2 is expanding the capacity to receive, right? Going into the vision beyond the vision. And once you have clarity on that, then you want to look at what's blocking you, what's stopping you, what's slowing you down, what's holding you back. And this is where you can ask yourself this and literally sit down and write out, like, you know what? I've been telling myself a story of this. I'm worried about this. I have fears about this. You touched on this earlier, like, oh, would that mean that I'd have to change my lifestyle? Would I have to be in one location? Like all these fears and worries, they're just stories. But this is information that's blocking this and it's putting your system into contraction. And so we want to see it and then alchemize it and change the energy so we can really put it into, useful energy to drive us forward and actually open up to create more space within our system.
And it was actually the medicine that revealed to me, I sat with ayahuasca in San Pedro and my intention was show me everything holding me back from true love. And it was a journey, girl. But
it's a good thing to drink to.
But a lot of it was moving from girl to woman consciousness.
Yeah.
And girl consciousness being the maiden, and it's like, ooh, he's cute. Oh, what's happening over there?
Right.
Ooh, experiences, and again, I was in a relationship, since I was 20, really my whole adulthood, but in my marriage since I was like 24 with that same person. So I never dated in my 20s or anything. And I feel it helped me a lot with my business. But then once I became single in my 30s, I was like, oh, like, I don't even know how to date. Like, what else is out there? So I feel like I kind of went back to being a girl, in that way. And then it was like, actually, it was the voice of, and I don't know if it's my actual future husband or it was like the divine masculine in me, but he was speaking into, I see myself as a man. Do you see yourself as a woman?
Yeah.
And showing me all the ways that I still wanted validation, attention, the things that were still girl consciousness. And I feel like this year for me, which now that we're recording this, tomorrow's my birthday.
Nice,
34, yes.
So amazing. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And I feel like that 33 was really shifting in all ways from girl to woman consciousness. And this is like really fully being in my woman. And I feel, again, we all say, I want a true man, but are we a true woman?
Right.
And what does that mean?
Are we creating space for that? And are we showing up in our feminine in this way? And this doesn't mean that you lose all your power all of a sudden. I think there's also like this concept around like, oh, in order to like go into our feminine, then we'd like, not have our business anymore and not make any money and everything just takes care of everything. It's like, again, it's like with my partner, it's like when we have conversations about money and I'm talking like big numbers that are generated through my business, I asked him, I said, how do you feel about that? Like these are large numbers we're discussing. And he turned around and he's like, well, my only option is to just figure out how to make more money than you. That was the response.
Hot.
Right? And I was like, right. And he's like, yeah, that's it. That's my only option.
Huh.
He said, otherwise I cannot stand there as the man.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And again, these things started to crumble and fall away, right? Because I'd lived so many years of my life just generating, and even taking care of the masculine, And I recently actually in a ceremony with ayahuasca in Peru about a month ago saw this vision where I shared this on stage yesterday. I was a little girl and I was like 6 or 7 years old and I was asking my dad for money for a dress that I really wanted. And he turned around and was like, honey, sorry, like we can't do that. Like we don't have enough money and our money's like just to figure out how we can put food on the table right now. Like we're not buying dresses. And I was like, okay, Dad. And I went to my room and then I cried. And the medicine showed me as this little girl, I made a choice in that moment where I was like, I'm going to make money myself because no one else can make money for me. And even worse, I'm going to make more than enough money to take care of the masculine because the masculine can't provide for me. And I literally chose that as a 6-year-old girl. And then I saw my life in front of me and I was like, holy shit, I have been creating from this wounded space and then attracting people, friends, relationships, reflections of the masculine where I've been showing up and generating for myself and then taking care of them. And how could I even create the space for a man to come in at a high financial level if I have that frequency running, right? And so I did so much work like unhooking from that and healing from that and then surrendering to that. And again, that does not mean that I step away from any of my financial power. Actually, I elevate into even more of it, but from such a different place,
It reminds me of as a little girl seeing my mom depend on my dad.
Yeah.
And my dad was making a lot of money, but very just like frugal and controlling. And I remember thinking, I never want a man to dictate how I'm going to spend money. I'm going to make my own money so I am free, and seeing that being provided for from a man has a cost, right? Because now he's in control and you've given up your power. And so I went on and I became a millionaire. I was 28. But it was definitely like, earning more and providing as well. And it's something that I definitely don't want. But it's interesting because then, I'm curious for you of like with your partner saying, well, I guess I have to figure out how to make more money. I also don't I wouldn't want to like put someone in a position that maybe doesn't feel natural for them. Like I feel like some people, maybe their impact is meant to be in different ways. And I find myself, I'm so much more drawn to someone's soul than like, I could never like have like a sugar daddy situation. Like I'm also like care a lot about their looks.
So that's
not going to work for me. So then I find myself of like, men that I like, I make more money than. Yeah. Men that I don't really like, they make more money than me, but like I have enough money that why would I put myself through that? So what's your advice in that situation?
Well, totally. Again, if that's showing up, then there's beliefs in there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
There's fears in there. So it's unpacking those, it's looking at those, recognizing that they're just stories and then they're manifesting on the outside. And I was also running that story. I was running a story of like, I literally said to him, you don't have to do that because I don't want you to feel like stress or pressure. Like you make more than enough money right now. And he turned around and he's like, do you realize you're here to activate my potential? And he's like, do you realize you're here for me to become more of a man, not less of a man, and not stay the same type of man? He's like, I need this. I want this. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he's like, I don't have a choice. And I was like, okay. So I also had to clear some of that because there was a part of me, with the same kind of story,
Yeah. Yeah. And trusting people also have their own soul journey in their interaction with us.
Right? Exactly.
And like a man, like if his soul is like, I want to step up to my full potential of my abundance as well, he will magnetize a soul like us who've really mastered and play in that realm because it's going to expand his capacity than someone who might be like, oh, I'm totally fine just like living on this small apartment or whatever. And that might be a great relationship for someone whose soul experience right now is to be like happy with where you're at, but obviously he chose you because he wants to grow in that way.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes only love is going to make us do things that nothing else would motivate us, especially if you're not someone who's driven just by money.
Right.
But he seems to be really driven by being in his masculine.
100%. And being the best version of himself. And when we met, he knew nothing about how much money I had. He didn't know my last name. He knew absolutely nothing. It was a pure soul connection. So the connection started in that way. And then it just makes sense. It's like, oh, of course, our souls come together for us to activate these divine masculine and feminine codes,
So once you become aware of these blocks, how do you clear them? Because you mentioned you did clearings on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. There are so many different ways, as you know, right? There's so many different tools, medicine, ceremonies, alchemy. There's so much. So what I love doing is simply just looking at each one and then saying, how does this want to be cleared? What's the easiest way to clear this? And honestly, sometimes you can look at something and just be like, I'm done with that. I'm actually done telling myself this story. I no longer tolerate that and it's gone. Right? It can be that fast. And then sometimes it might be like, okay, I'm feeling it in my body. Let me move my body. Let me purge it out. Let me massage between my solar plexus because I feel it stuck in there. Sometimes it could be anything, right? It could be ripping it out of your journal and burning it into the fire and choosing that this is now done. You can choose your tool. There it is. The fire of alchemy.
Collective healing for all of you guys in this fire.
You can use this fire. So you can choose your tools. But as long as at the end, you feel complete with it, that's great. And look, sometimes they pop back up. It's not always a one and done show. Like sometimes it's like, okay, cool. There's another layer of it or another piece that you didn't see before, or you activate another layer in your life and then some new limits that are similar come up. It's okay. Like there's no failure around this. It's all just data points of evolution. And I'm so excited when I find these things. I'm like, okay, this means something's going to change. Like this is good. I saw a story today. Wow. I noticed resistance in myself. I'm so happy I could see it. Like I celebrate it and get curious with it.
I feel like life often shows us too.
Yeah.
We get into these like different situations where it's like, I'm sick of this story. Like I'm just like really done with the story like happening. And then it's like, it's like that decision. I always like kind of writing it down. I feel like that helps me like, okay, I've written this thing down. I'm really going to stick with it. But do you find that then we get tests after? What are your thoughts on like the universe testing us?
Can be, for sure. We get tests, like a little poke at it to see if we've learned the lesson or not.
Right.
We get tests also sometimes with our vision and our manifestations, and we get it and then see if we have the capacity to hold it and keep it and really be in it, right? So we've got to like really ground and really stabilize all the energy.
Okay, so that's number 3, and then what's the 4th step?
So the 4th step is that's when we update our beingness, right? So we want to connect to the version of ourselves in the future that's already manifested everything that we desire, right? And we're looking at this beingness, like how does this version of us walk and talk and think and act and be? And what is different now versus the version of ourselves out there in the future, right?
So like starting to embody that energy, dress as that energy, like what would that look like?
Yeah. So it's almost like if we go back 5 years ago, you were you. And then if you fast forward the time to now, you're still you. You've just evolved into a better version of yourself. And then if we fast forward out 5 years in your future, you're going to be you. You're just going to be like more conscious, more amazing, younger, better looking, like just more awesome, right? Is how it works.
Just
right?
keep getting hotter, duh.
Yeah. So what most people do is they wait out the 5, 10, 15, 20 years to evolve into that version. But we know through quantum physics that we have access to all the information simultaneously, relative to distance across time and space. So we can connect with the version of ourselves that's manifested what we want and literally import that information from the field into the now. So think of it like a podcast interview with your higher self. And you're literally sitting there. You don't have to see them. You can literally just be journaling like, okay, I choose to connect with that version of me now. And ask, how do they walk? How do they talk? How do they dress? What do they say yes to? What do they boldly say no to? What do they no longer tolerate? What are they just done with? Where do they live? How do they travel? What are the vibe of the people they're around? What do they do in the morning? How do they go to bed at night? How do they sleep? How much water do they drink? Like all these details, it may seem crazy, but this is the beingness. And then you write that out and then you want to start being this. And this is not fake it till you make it. I had someone recently be like, oh yeah, it's like faking it till you make it. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. That's lying. That's out of integrity. That's pretending you're something you're not. This is about getting into the truth of who you really are. This is radical integrity. This is authenticity. This is letting the highest light of the version of you shine through. This is when you walk into a room and people are like, who's that person? They're radiating. Like, I just want to get to know them. It's often because they're just being themselves. They're not trying to be someone they're not. When you meet someone, they're trying to be something and you're kind of like repulsed by them. I don't know. I just don't like that person because they're not being authentic. And the highest level of authenticity is being the highest version of you and bringing that version to the altar of life.
So would you say that's like, for example, in the relationship one, just being the version of me that's in this relationship and how she would show up? Or would it be like visualizing the relationship? Or for money, would it be being the abundant version of you or like visualizing yourself putting in the check? Like, do you actually do the tangible thing or
you do
more
the
just
tangible thing? Yeah. So literally you get to be the version of you that's already in the relationship. So when you wake up in the morning, what are you doing? You're saying hello to him? You rolling over to check he's
so
there?
I would just to my empty bed. Hello, good morning.
What?
My pillow.
Right, exactly. Like, and you're feeling that. Like, it's kind of, you're going to feel crazy doing this. It's the same with money. You're going to feel crazy with any of this doing this because there's a perceived gap right now, right? But then throughout your day, you're in consideration like, okay, cool. Like, actually, let me message him and let's go for a coffee together. Like, you're initiating the thought process and the action that he's there. You go home later that night and you're not just like, oh, okay, it's just me. I'm tired. I'm not going to eat. You're aware like, okay, how's his day being? Does he maybe need some food too? Like, you're already in the structure of it. Right? You're literally living into the container of it. Now, you don't need to go and cook like food for 2 people, right?
Dinner for 2.
This is for my man.
I'm at a restaurant just having a conversation with a chair.
Yeah.
If I get arrested here in Dubai, Regan, I'm blaming you.
No, but honestly, when I did this, especially with money so many years ago, like if you'd been in my head versus my reality, you would have thought I was insane because I was cultivating this $1 million version of Regan that was 6 figures in personal debt and so far away from that reality. You would have been like, you need to go to a crazy house. Like,
so what were you saying to yourself in your head?
Everything. I was waking up and I was like, okay, I'm so happy and grateful that I look at my banking app and I have this amount in my account. This feels so good. Okay, I have like an extra like $372,000 right now. Like, what am I going to do with that? Let me think about that, right? And I'd write these things down and it was so far out of my reality. I'd go to the supermarket and I'd notice that I would look at the blueberries and they were like $7. And then I'd be like, my current program in my head was like $7 for blueberries. Like, that's crazy. And I grabbed the strawberries that were like $3.50. And then I noticed like, I don't even like strawberries. What am I doing? right? And so whenever there was a choice where it really didn't matter if I saved $3 or $4, like it's not going to change my life financially.
I think we've all specifically done that with the strawberries, by the way.
Right.
I'm like, I guess I'll do raspberries are overrated
No,
anyways. Yeah.
you want the raspberries,
Yeah.
you want the blueberries, right? So I put them back and be like, okay, the $1 million version of me gets the blueberries. Wherever you have a chance to take the action, you do it. Now, I'm not saying that, for example, you go and book a first class ticket that you really cannot afford and then you mess yourself up financially. Don't do that. But if you're in a position where you can and you want to go and book that ticket, then you sit on that plane and you celebrate that you fly first class each and every single day. And you sit there and you journal and you say that I'm so happy and grateful that I now have a lifestyle like this. And you use that flight to literally 10x your money and 10x your life. And I did that so many times in the beginning when it wasn't comfortable financially to be flying business or first class, right? And I would use any opportunity I could to push myself into that. But don't do that at the expense of like, now I'm super broken, stressed out, because then that creates stress that's not helping. We want to get into the energy of it being done through this beingness. So anytime you can take action on it, you want to be doing that. Go to men's clothes stores. Be like, what clothes am I grabbing for him? What's his vibe? Like, let me check, like start doing things.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been very much of like just self-love and like only focusing on me and even trying to not think about dating or anything at all, just to like focus on myself. So this is like a totally different mindset shift of like, I don't know, I guess I've always thought like if there's something I really want, it's almost like the wanting it repels it. So what are your thoughts on that?
We want it because we desire it, and our soul is speaking to us through desire. And the translation is, hey, you've already done this somewhere out in your future. So that's what the desire of the soul is telling us. If someone else has manifested something and you're like, I'm happy for you, but I don't really want it, it's probably not out in your future. But if you see someone, you're like, I'm happy for you and I would love that, it's because it's actually out there somewhere, right? So you want to be tapping into the soul desire, but then you don't want to be attached to it. And this is where the masculine feminine comes into manifesting, because manifesting is both. It's a masculine intention, it's a precision, it's a penetration of like, here's where we're going. We're planting the seed. Like, this is the direction we're going in. Here's the vision. Okay. And you anchor that in, but then it's a feminine release. It's a feminine surrender. You're actually then allowing yourself to open to allow the manifestations to co-create through you. And so if you're in a place of, okay, now I really, really, really want it, and I've got to control the process, and why hasn't it happened yet? It's like planting the seed and then digging it up to see if it grew 24 hours later. Like, no, you need to leave the seed and now trust that the tree's going to grow, right? And then the tree starts growing. You're like, okay, cool. And then you take another step forward and then you surrender again. So we've got to be really clear on what we want and let it go from a place of not just ignoring it or not caring about it, but actually releasing all the control and letting all that contracted energy get out so that you can actually receive it.
And do you feel that sometimes there are certain lessons or experiences we need to have on the way? Like, for example, if I desire to make 7 figures a year and I'm not, that there are certain jobs I need to have, experience I need to have to prepare myself, or it's like waiting for that perfect thing. If I want that tantric sacred union, certain relationships I need to have on the way, or like just wait out for that thing.
It could be either, yeah. I think it's case by case. I think it depends on the person and where they're at. And maybe some lessons are required for someone to then go, oh, now I got that, now I got that, I got clarity on that, now I need the opposite of that, boom, here we go. Right? And sometimes not. Sometimes it's just boom, here we go. Right? So I think it can be either.
It's interesting how I feel like in life, the lessons we learn, it is this opposite game.
Yeah.
It's like we have this, and then even in dating, you want this, then you date the opposite. You want that, then you date until you find your equilibrium.
Yeah. Because we live in this world of polarity and duality as well. So when you realize everything's just data points of evolution, it's interesting because there's no failure, there's no good or bad experience. There's just, it is what it is, and what is there to learn from it. And often the clarity can be like, okay, well, now I'm very clear on what I don't want. So let me now anchor in the complete opposite of that.
Because I feel we have these fantasies, we have this fantasy of like, oh, my person is like this, or I'm going to make money doing that. And sometimes you need to manifest that thing to be like, oh, it has holes in it. That's actually not the thing that I want. And that only going through it would help you see that.
Absolutely. And sometimes we're manifesting from the ego, and from our fears and from wounds and from the limiting construct of the mind. And then we go through that and realize like, whoa. And that's why some people create even at a high level, and then they get the thing and they feel unhappy or unfulfilled. you know, because there's the wound underneath that never got healed.
So it's really interesting manifesting from the ego, but even like manifesting from a place of sacrifice.
Yeah.
So there was something I caught in myself of like, when I, walked up to Deepak Chopra at a conference and he ended up writing the foreword of my book and working with him, when that was going on and I was just praying to God when I wasn't, I had met him and he wanted the meeting with me and I wasn't sure what it was going to be about. And obviously my deepest desire was to work with him in some capacity. And so I told God, I was like, this isn't for me. This book can touch more people's lives, and really just using me as a vessel for Ayurveda to be able to help heal people. And it happened.
Yeah.
So the belief I created was manifestations happen when it's for the greatest good of all. Mm-hmm. When it's not just for yourself, but you can tie it into how this is going to impact humanity. And I've been rolling with that ever since.
Yeah.
However, there was a hole in that for me of I was praying to God, please allow this tantric union to happen, not for me, but so I can come on the podcast and show people that it's possible and let it be the story that you want me to share with the people who I'm meant to work with. Wow. And whatever that story is meant to be, let me be the vessel for that. But the block in that was that then it wasn't for me. I'm sacrificing myself and sacrificing I don't even deserve love. Let me just help the people on the podcast. They deserve love. I don't.
Right.
And it was this interesting thing and now, I'm not in the relationship so I can talk as much as I want, but it's how much of it are we really doing for ourselves and how much of it are we just doing to teach, you know? And so it showed me, it was whenever you get into a relationship, don't share, okay, this is how I got into the relationship and this. It takes a long time, even in a relationship, to first of all, even know the solidity of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of lessons you only know years later, once you look back. And so it told me, it was wait until you're deep in the relationship. It told me wait 7 years, which sounds really, really long. Yeah. And then you can teach about relationships, but not until then.
Yeah. And it's such an important point. It's not just this thing of it's all for service. It's all for everyone else. And, that's great. But it also must also be for you, right? Because how are you ever going to know if it's right and true if it's not fully for you? Mm-hmm. I shared a part of this story on the stage the other day too, but my partner and I were going through a process a couple of weeks ago, and he walked into the room and he's like, I'm about to change your life. It was a very bold statement. I was like, okay, how? And he sat down and he's like, I need to ask you something. I said, okay. He said, tell me how manifestation works. And I told him, well, it's taking prayers and dreams and visions and anchoring them into reality. He said, okay, good. So you understand? I said, yes. And he said, okay, is it true that someone wouldn't manifest something unless they're really, really, really clear on what they want for themselves, not for everyone else, but for themselves? And I was like, yeah, that's true. And then he looked at me and he's like, so why aren't you really clear on what you want to manifest in your life right now? Kicked my ass. And I was like, no, I am. And he's like, no, you're not. And he's like, you're tippy-toeing around the surface. And I was like, no, I'm not. And he said, I need you to demand what you want in your life. He said, from me, from this relationship, and for the rest of your life. And I said, okay. And the word demand got me. I started feeling uncomfortable. I was sweating. I was like, demand, that's an aggressive word. I don't like that word. Immediately I was like, eh. And I was like, okay, well, I want. He's like, no, not I want. He's like, I want you to say, I demand. He said, look into my eyes and say, I demand. And I was like, okay. And he's like, come on, let's go. And I was like, okay, I demand this, I demand that. And he's like, what about your money? What about this? He's like, what do you want in this relationship? What do you demand from me as a man? He's like, what do you demand in terms of how I protect and how I, boom,
girl, you're getting us all heated up. Wow, this is an erotic story. Wow.
It actually was. It really was. I'm serious. I was halfway through and he's like, keep going. I'm so turned on. Keep going. Right?
Ooh.
Really, it was this whole process, right? This whole process. And I got to the end of what felt like forever to get to the end of this. And then he's like, okay. He's like, now I want you to tell me why you are deserving and worthy of all of that. Tell me with clarity. And this had another layer because I was like, oh, and again, there were these parts of me just not fully owning it and not fully claiming it. And this pattern, still putting things oh, because, that's good to be of service and this would help my people more. No, what do I want? and what do I demand and what do I no longer tolerate? It was a really big process for me.
Yeah. I mean, like what that's bringing up in me, like my own blocks and that would be, I feel like my life has taken me in directions that I in no way demanded, like finding out infidelity in my marriage and getting a divorce. Would have never saw that one coming. That I've almost like taken this path of just like, surrender to the divine and let the divine take me where I'm meant to go. And that is a really important piece of the spiritual journey. So it's been like totally just about like, God, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Have me meet whoever I'm supposed to meet, have me make whatever money you want me to make, have me this, have me that. Like I literally have at this point 0 expectations, demands, anything. And so when you say that, I'm like, I think it's like this questioning of like, do I even know best? Like, do I know better than God?
And
like,
there's the block. Do you really trust yourself?
Right. Because, and I can see, like, I can counterpoint myself of like, well, when you really tune into your heart and what you really desire, that's encoded in you.
Yes.
And that is from God.
Yeah, exactly. That is God.
And also your journey of getting there, the actions that you take, even like the saying, I demand. But it's interesting because I'm like, who am I even demanding this from? Am I demanding it from God? Am I demanding it from myself? Am I like—
all of it.
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is like, because I do believe in the divine plan. I do believe in divine timing and divine synchronicities and all these things. I do believe before we come here, everything's very much predetermined and pre-written. But then that's an interesting question around like, well, then where does manifestation come into that? You might as well just do nothing because it's all just going to roll out as it's meant to be. But it's rolling out as it's meant to be. And if someone's just like, unconscious and they're just in their 9-to-5 job and it is what it is and that's their life and they never see themselves or do anything or look at anything with their inner world, I think their life really just will roll out just on autopilot, however it was predetermined. But it's interesting from what I've found is that even with this rollout and this divine timing and these elements and events that are out there, I have found that when we co-create in this process and when we start anchoring in the energy, we can shift things. We can adjust things. We can access different realms, different realities, different timelines, different parallel universes, if you like. And we start tapping into different pathways of potentiality. And what if there were an infinite number of possible outcomes? What if there was an infinite number of ways this could show up? So I feel like when we just are in this energy, which I have been in also, of just like, whatever, I just hand it all to God. It is going to be what it's going to be. Like, right? We give our power away and we disconnect from the power of our soul versus saying, no, I'm fully connected to God. I'm co-creating with God, Great Spirit, the universe. And I would have in the past say, here's what I desire. And now I'm saying, here's what I demand my life actually looks like. And that demand comes now from this deep place of trust and knowing that God is encoded in every cell of my being, that the 99.999% nothingness is infinite potentiality and possibility. And from that place, I can direct the energy to the highest potential and then still surrender and allow the magic to continue to take place.
So guys, probably the number one question that I got is what I put on my skin. And I'm about to put you onto something. So when I was in Bali, I was sitting with my shamanic teacher, Malika, and I was like, you are 60 something years old. Your skin looks insane. What do you do? And she said, castor oil with frankincense, but it has to be pure, organic, hexane-free castor oil. I was like, okay, I need to get that. I need to get frankincense. And honestly, I just never got around to it. And then I discovered Holistic Goddess, and they have already combined it in this really beautiful rose quartz roller like container so you can roll it onto your skin with rose quartz. So you're infusing that like goddess self-love, beauty as a spiritual path, medicine onto your skin with the pure organic castor oil and the frankincense blend. It has made my skincare routine so freaking easy. Plus they have other blends with lavender or just castor oil as well. So you can get your trifecta with my discount and you will see what I mean. So head over to holisticgoddess.com/Sahara and use promo code Sahara to get $20 off. That's holisticgoddess.com/Sahara with promo code Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen.
Yeah, like even I demand reminds me of like abracadabra. It's like our words are our wands and we are like creating our reality with our words, our thoughts. And so like it reminds me of like we are the genie. So it's like I demand, but it's actually from me.
Exactly.
It's like I demand this from me means I say no to what's not that.
Absolutely. And I raise my level of tolerance. You know, I've taught this for so many years. Like, we don't get in life our biggest dream and our biggest vision always. Otherwise, everyone would just have a vision and then manifest it. But we do get what we're willing to tolerate. And our level of tolerance is our current reality. Everything we do and don't have in our life, it's because we're tolerating that. So we need two things. We need our vision. We need to know where we're going. Yes, we need to demand that. We need to get in alignment with that. And we need to raise up our level of tolerance. We need to raise up our minimum standard. Because in every area of our life, whatever that looks like right now, we have hit our minimum standard. And that's why two people might make the same amount of money and have the same big thing happen in their business and everything blows up and they lose all their money. And one person ends up using that challenge as an opportunity and makes 10 times the amount of money a year later. The other person ends up homeless, alcoholic on the street. Why? What happened? Two different internal structures. One had a minimum standard of, I will never be homeless. The other person had a minimum standard of, that's a potential, right? And so it's an extreme example, but like, whatever your life is like right now, it's your minimum standard. And the minute you can just see that without judgment and just get curious about it and be like, actually, I'm grateful for this, but I'm no longer okay with this. And by the way, your minimum standard can be great. You can be like, I'm done making $10 million a year. I'm grateful for it, but I'm not willing to tolerate that anymore. Like, now's my time for 20, right? And you can be raising this up constantly, but we've got to be raising this with the vision also. We can't just have the vision. We've got to be bringing this piece up at the same time.
I feel like dating really shows you that.
Absolutely.
Of like, you date someone and then maybe you're really excited about this person, then whatever, it doesn't work. They don't want to be in a relationship. And then you're like, oh, I've just raised my bar and like, that's not even my type anymore. And like after every person, the bar raises and you're like, thank goddess that didn't work out for whatever reason. Even if before we pedestal them and we really want it to happen, in the moment that it doesn't, it's like standard has increased. That is no longer acceptable in my field. And until you reach this point where you do feel fully met. So my question then is like, for people who are in a relationship right now, who are like, I desire to be in greater depth, you know, like how do they know if it's leaving that relationship or just demanding more from the relationship?
I think it comes down to also the other person, because relationships are interesting because it's one area of life that doesn't depend just on you. You know, your finances, you can take control of it. Your body, you're in charge, right? But your relationship depends on another person, right? Also, so you want to be expressing, for example, like I require more depth. I demand more depth from myself and from you and from this relationship. And you must go there yourself. You must be the person that then activates that depth within you. Now, if your partner doesn't have the capacity after giving them a chance to go into more depth, that would be the time to question, like, okay, is this really the right thing for me long term? Because if you walk, in my opinion, you get to walk knowing that I juiced out absolutely every opportunity for growth. And you'll know if you're not. You'll know if you're walking a little early maybe, or you shouldn't be walking at all, because there's things there for you to still learn and unlock. And I would say the exception to this rule would be something like abuse. You're not like, oh, I'm going to stay in an abusive relationship because there's something to learn. No, that's abuse. Get out of there. But anything else, more depth, for example, you know, there's lessons to juice out. But if you're walking away and you can put your hand on your heart and say, I really showed up, everything I demanded, I went there first, everything I requested, I gave them an opportunity to rise into this, and there was a period of time and it just did not happen and the growth became stagnant, that's when, you know.
Yeah. And it's amazing the level of depth we can have in relationships from us leaning in first, you know? Like I feel like it's so easy to be like, my partner's not as deep as me, they're not as spiritual as me. And it's like, you know, that's our own cop-out of us going even deeper, of us even finding our own like sovereignty in the relationship and not having it be so dependent on like, you know, his depth. It's always really an us thing. And and then there are some times where it's just like, this container is no longer working. But I think we kind of jump to that often more quickly.
Many people do.
Yes.
Yeah. And they exit out too soon. When there's still that you've been brought together for a reason, you know, and really if that reason is a spiritual mirror and true divine union and evolution, then keep going until you juice it out.
So I'm curious your thoughts on quantum time. Because you talk about quantum time, how we can collapse time. And I've seen this in my own life. You know, I achieved a lot of success young in life. You know, my first book came out when I was 25 years old. And And I wonder sometimes, I'm like, was that just in my soul path, like in my astrology, like it was meant to happen like that? Or was I subconsciously collapsing time and just like busting through a lot of limiting beliefs so it happened faster? So how much of it is like the divine timing of life and astrology and all of that versus us collapsing these timelines?
I mean, when you say it, I feel you really did the work to pull that in faster.
Yeah.
Knowing you and just listening to that. I don't feel that's just something, for example, that just fell in your lap.
No.
Right. So if you feel like, oh my God, it just fell in my lap, I don't even know where that came from, then yeah, maybe that is like a divine timing blessing. But for the rest of us that need to do kind of a lot of work internally, that's when I think you would have written that book anyway. But that young, I don't know. That's a time bend for me. That's a quantum leap, you know.
So you feel most of our lives are more around how long it takes for us to learn the lessons and actually implement them versus—
Totally. Yeah. So, you know, when you come into really high level and advanced manifestation, it's never a conversation of will it happen? Because you know you can create anything you want in any area of your life, but it's a question of when. And that's really, that separates out the people that are okay at manifestation versus the ones that are like this and they're quantum leaping their reality constantly and accelerating everything. They just know how to play with the time, right? So time is malleable. It's a construct and it's an illusion. And it's actually an amazing tool in our manifestation toolkit. And we have so much programming around time. Like, time we perceive to be linear, and we perceive that, you know, there's 24 hours in a day and 365 days in a year and all these structures. And it's really our own way, one of the ways of processing reality. But if we can get out of time, if we can unhook ourselves from this linear time situation, if we can start playing with multidimensional time, if we start realizing that we naturally are time benders and we can alter and bend the time, and we start training ourselves to have altered states of consciousness and experiences where we're jumping in and out of time, the time becomes more lucid and the time becomes more malleable, and you start having an interesting experience where things start showing up in your life where people around you are like, how'd you do that so fast? How'd you do that so young? Like, how did this happen? And you're playing with the time in that way. And so in order to start doing that, you've got to start looking at your relationship with time. That's really the first step, because most people are telling themselves that there's not enough hours in the day, that they never have the time to do what they love, that if that's a really big goal, it's going to take a long time, that they wish they had more time, like all these programs, and they're just programs, right? But what if instead you're like, you know what? Okay, time's an illusion. It's malleable. I'm going to play with it. I choose to believe I'm a time bender. I choose to believe that my manifestations always show up earlier than I expect. I choose to believe that I always have more than enough time to do the things that I love. I choose to believe that time's on my side. I choose to believe that I love time. Like, this is rolling off my tongue because I programmed myself to function this way, because I realized, I was like, whoa, I have all these limits around time. My biggest worry right now is time. I feel busy. I feel like there's not enough time. I was like, I don't want to live a life like that. I want to have multiple companies and an amazing relationship and a beautiful family. I want to travel the world and still go to the spa and get a massage and sleep in and do whatever the hell I want every day, right? So I was like, I need to shift this, because my years ago relationship with time was depicting a path that was very different to that, right? So I started layer by layer unplugging from that and then playing with this new relationship with time. And people ask me all the time, like, how you do it? How you get it all in? How you get it done? And yeah, there's moments of like intensity and pressure, especially when I'm in Dubai and things are just like back to back. And 12 hours ago, we were like at some gala ball and like, you know, it's like, it's craziness. And
we wake up, guys, by the way, we don't sleep
did change our I wouldn't have it any other way. But at the same time, you know, you can play with the time in this way. And also getting into altered states of consciousness really helps. Like, how many ceremonies have you sat in where you're like, impossible that was 8 hours. That was like 3 years of my life, right? Impossible that it was 8 hours. That was like 2.5 hours, right? And it's a complete warped time experience because we're jumping out of time through altered states.
And I feel like the things that I've done that people are like, how have you written 4 books and this? I get into these channeled states that it's flowing through me, that I will like write an entire book in 2 months.
Super flow.
Exactly. Because I'm in a relationship with the book in that period of time. And I feel like sometimes these like thought forms come through us, but then we're like, oh, I don't have time for this right now. Come back later. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go to this other person. And you're like, oh my God, I wrote like literally all the sales page in my notes app, but you didn't publish it. And the thought form went to someone else, like there's a story about how Michael Jackson used to call his manager in the middle of the night and be like, we need to hit the studio.
Yeah.
And the manager was just like, it's the middle of the night. We can't. And he's like, I have a melody in my head right now.
Yeah.
And if we don't record it tonight,
go.
Prince will.
Yeah, totally.
They're getting the same songs sent to them by source. And it's like, that's how many times have you watched Shark Tank? And you're like, I literally thought of that 5 years ago, but I didn't do it. Like, I literally thought of the word play place, which is McDonald's thing. When I was like 4, I was like, they should call this the play place. And then like years later, it was called the play place. I'm like, I thought of that myself. Came through me when I used to go to McDonald's. But
it's true.
Yeah. And it's like, so I feel it's like, it's riding the wave, it's kind of like surfing. It's like that idea, that momentum comes to you and it's like, will you ride the wave and see it through?
Right.
Because that's the thing. Yeah. Sometimes we start it and then we're like, oh, I don't have time or I'm not good or I'm not ready. And then it's like jumping off the middle of the wave. How do you expect to go back to the shore?
I've done this so many times, embarrassingly large number of times that I've received some sort of idea and haven't seen it through for whatever reason. But the process for everyone listening and watching is listen, trust, and act. Right? So you've got to create the space first to listen, to receive the download. If you're just like being busy each and every single day, like you're not going to receive it. You've got to create that space to actually tune inwards, right? Open the channel. And then when you receive that, you want to trust the information. Sometimes it feels left field, or I don't know how I'm going to do that, or no one's done that before, or right? And so you don't take any action on it because of that. You've got to trust what's coming through you, and then you need to act upon it. Right? And many people, they listen to it, they create the space, they trust the information. Yeah, that's a good idea, but they don't act. Right? And I've been caught in all of these steps. I've been not listening, I've been not trusting, I've been not acting, and it still happens. But I'm always, looking, interesting, why didn't I create space to listen that week? Okay, I listened, but why didn't I trust that? Okay, now I see that part of myself that felt that I wasn't enough to do something that big. Okay, interesting. Okay, I listened, I trusted, why didn't I act upon it? Oh, I told myself a story that I was too busy and I didn't have time. Let me shift that, right? So I'm always learning this and refining this, and it still happens. But listen, trust, act.
Love that. So for you, what are your daily spiritual practices? What does that look like?
Many things. And this all stems from the first thing in the morning. And when I wake up in bed and I kind of come into like waking consciousness, my first predominant thought always is, what does my soul desire right now? That's always the thing that I ask myself. You could say, what does God desire for me right now? But yeah, what does my soul desire? And then from there, that leads me into wherever I need to go. That might be just lying in bed for 20 minutes and just being still. That might be going through an activation. That might be getting up straight away, going to the gym and lifting heavy weights. It can look different each and every single day. I've gone really deep over the past 2.5 years into chanting practices. Like chanting has been one of my core
what
fundamentals.
Kind of chanting?
Sanskrit. I've been using the Beach mantras as well. I've been working with lots of different chants I saw, when was it?
You didn't come to India with me, girl.
I know. It's on the list, really. Let's make that happen. Yeah, it was New Year's Eve 2 years ago, and I sat around a fire with some friends and some wachuma, and I boldly declared that this would be my year of full expression. And then about 2 weeks after that, I started the process of having 3 teeth removed in my mouth, only to have another 2 removed that year. So I had 5 teeth out that year, which was crazy and painful and nuts, like all my back wisdom teeth plus 1 extra. But it was part of the clearing and the releasing that had to take place. And so as I went through that process, and I was also very crazy wanting to do everything naturally, and no, I don't want any painkillers to help me afterwards and all of this. And I had them removed on laughing gas and like all these things, right? As I was in this ceremony of opening more space in my mouth, the thing that kept coming to me was sound frequency. You need to get sound in your mouth to open up like this portal of expression. And I wasn't really singing then or doing anything like that other than speaking on stages, but it was like sound. And so I went on this whole journey of chanting every day and yeah, using this to open up this portal of expression. And then as I went deeper into these mantras and these chants, there was one mantra I started working with, which was just over a year ago. And it was actually in an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru. I had this vision where this huge crystalline diamond appeared in front of me. And it was like a diamond that wasn't a color from this planet. It was so beautiful. I was like, okay, what is this diamond? And then the medicine says, this is a diamond of purification. Like this diamond can purify anything in any area of your life and it will clear it out and everything will upgrade. And I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at this diamond in front of me and I start hearing this mantra and I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard it before. It's like, Om Vajrasattva Samyam Manipulaya Vajrasattva. And it's going on and on and on and on and on. And I remember this middle bit. It was ha 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 home. And I was like, I remember that piece. And it's going on and on and on, this mantra. I'm like, it's Sanskrit. I recognize it, but I don't know what this mantra is. It keeps going. And then I finish the ceremony. I go through this whole process and I'm kind of confused. It's one of those ceremonies where I'm like, I don't know what all that was, right? And I come out of it and I'm working with my vocal coach, Marin, and I jump on Zoom with her. This was like 2 weeks after the ceremony. And I said, okay, I want to, start working with a new mantra. What do you feel for me? And she said, well, I was tuning into you before this call, and there's this diamond mantra of purification that I think you should work with. And I said, tell me more. And I said, wait, before you do, does it have home in the middle? And she's like, yes. And she starts singing it. And I'm like, this is from my ceremony. This is what I heard on repeat for like 7 hours. And she's like, okay, well, I guess you're meant to chant this. So it's a 100-syllable mantra. And it was very long and complicated to learn, but I chanted it every single day for, let's see, I think over 6 months, every single morning. It takes nearly an hour to get through the full 108 of it. And so when I started chanting that, my whole life started kind of blowing up and tearing itself apart in many ways. I had a really intense betrayal from a sister that I would have considered my best friend at the time. All these things, just anything that was under the surface, purify, 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 and just got like brought to the light. And I was just living in this like whirlwind of like, well, what is going on? But also being so grateful for it and coming back to that chant every morning, being like, okay, more, I'm ready for more. Here we go. Purify it. Crystalline diamond, and just having this diamond in front of me and this mantra in front of me. So whilst opening my voice and my expression and using the sound frequency, when we emit a sound, it's a vibration and that alters the vibration of the field around us and that shifts what we manifest. So that's been a big part of my practice too.
So crazy how these mantras come to us. And yeah, like more recently, I've been really drawn to like Lord Shiva's energy.
Yeah.
And like that being like the pure example of like divine masculine consciousness and, Shiva Shakti and that beautiful sacred union of both of them embodying their highest selves. And it was like on YouTube, it just started like all these Shiva mantras kept coming to me. And then I was in India and he was like, oh, do you want me to, like, the driver guy's like, do you want me to show you this temple? Because I told him I'm very into Hinduism. And it was a 4,000-year-old Shiva temple. So I went in there and I was meditating in there. And the Babaji of the temple, who like doesn't interact with anyone, comes out and we do the ritual of offering milk to the 4,000-year-old Shiva lingam, which is like highest honor. And then 3 different people have invited me to go to Mahakumbh Mela, which is like, the largest gathering in the world, a spiritual gathering in India, and all 3 during Shivaratri, which is like the time of Shiva. And it's like that energy is so, and it's so interesting how these different mantras come to us at different times of like, oh, you're calling in purification. Like this is for you right now. You're calling in divine masculine. This is for you. Like even like men that like look like Lord Shiva, right? Like they're like Shiva Barbies because their personalities are baby Krishna.
That's so funny.
Like God's like, whoa, this is so long. So just like long hair, pony, like Indian, my type, But it's been so fascinating, just the power of these. I also have been listening to the Gayatri mantra a lot, which is just like simple and like also, these mantras, there's frequencies in our sounds. And that's why I even started to make music of like, it's literally creating vocal harmonies, frequencies, like ripple effects. Right? That's what sound is. Exactly.
The technologies. They're so powerful.
I love that. And do you do like breath work or any other thing, or is it mostly the mantra?
Breath here and there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as I am still breathing, I'm okay, But
And are you like a Palladian, or you definitely are a galactic soul? Like, have you ever looked into that?
I've gone very deep into that galactic world, into channeling, into connecting with so many different beings. And I've come to the conclusion that I have a wide range of lineages that I am and that I pull from and that I connect with. There's not really one race that I feel like, oh my goodness, that is that, it's like I have been in connection with and feel very connected to many of those lineages. Yeah.
Totally. Because I feel we're drawing upon all of our different past lives, and it's like different time periods of our lives are more into this one and that thread. And it's like it's like even past lives, it's like, well, when we go into that time doesn't exist, are they even in the past, or are they just like simultaneous lives all happening right now?
Exactly. And we're all of it, and we're multidimensional. And I feel a deep connection to all of it. And I work with different galactic beings for different things as well. So for example, if I'm working with a client or in a ceremony, I might call in the Arcturian specifically to support with like sound frequency transmission and things like that. So I have kind of different connection points in depending on the tools and the modalities and what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy how even like different life lessons guide us to different lineages. Like, I remember after my divorce, I was like in Egypt all of a sudden, and it was like that lineage was like, oh, death? We're the masters at that. It's like, and now it's like, another one. And it's like this journey just takes you on, all these different, and they're all like synergistic. And then we see like, I'm curious for you, when you work with like different deities, do you see them as like almost like people, or do you see them as just like aspects of us?
A little bit of both. And more than that, I see them as morphic fields of resonance. So, for anyone listening, a morphic field or a morphogenic field is effectively a library cluster of all information associated with that thing, past, present, future. So this is why, for example, a mantra is so powerful, because it's not just what the word means. It's not just the sound frequency. It's not just the technology. You're tapping into all of the other people that have chanted it. Oof. Every single like prayer and intention and mantra and chant in every temple across from the past and in the future and happening right now, all of that information is in that morphic field. So when you connect into that chant, you're accessing all of that. So you're amplifying, especially if someone's like, this is for purification. You're in that field of everyone behind you holding that same intention of let's purify. So that's why it's like full power, right?
So true.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we dove into so much here. I love this card. There's so much for people to like re-listen to and like tune back into. And you have these beautiful activations where you're like really speaking life into people. So where can people connect with you and go deeper into your work?
Yeah, sure. So reganhillyer.com, and it's also Regan Hillyer on all the social media, and send me a DM. I do check my DMs, and let me know you came from this show as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me and just being such a beautiful example of what's possible, of like being deep in the spiritual world and like on the medicine path and really sitting with your shadows, but also like we're in like beautiful glam Dubai.
Yes, we are.
And it's a mood and it's fun. And it's like you get to be in both. And I also just feel like some of us and a lot of people listening to this podcast, our souls have chosen to bring that ancient primordial wisdom into this material world, because if we don't, it won't be here. Totally. And it's like, we're all talking about the split, and it's like going to be like, you're either in the jungle or you're like AI, but it's like, well, if we don't want that, we need to be bringing jungle into AI.
We need to be all of it.
Exactly.
We need to be all of it. And it's so fun playing into all of it. Again, we were just on this Mind Valley stage, and some of the guys doing music for me, the last time I saw them was 5 years ago in the jungle, and we were all like 3 a.m. with our ayahuasca buckets, like laying down our prayers and singing our songs, Now we're on stage at Mind Valley with thousands of people laying down the same prayers and the same songs, but in a different way. And, it really is about, I believe, being the bridge. And you're also a beautiful example of this, of really bringing in these ancient codes in the ancient world and fusing them into the now. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your light, and you really expand me.
Thank you. I love you.
Love you. Well, that was such a beautiful conversation. This is a good one to share with your friends and be like, what was your takeaway? What did you learn? And even go through her 4 steps together. So share this with your friends, share this on your stories. And if you loved this episode, please leave a review or write a comment on YouTube. By the way, this is on a video format. So if you're not seeing us in person, be sure to watch and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, so you can see the full thing. And as a free gift for leaving a review, I will send you my womb meditation. Now, this is a meditation meditation you can do to connect to your sacred, divine, feminine portal of wisdom. So all you got to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and email it over to me at sahara@IamSaharaRose.com. You can find that email and all of the links mentioned today in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes.